I discovered my wife's message to her ex. Once I secure his inheritance, I'm all yours. So I shielded every dime, handed her divorce papers on her birthday, and walked away forever. I never imagined I'd be that man sitting here, typing out the details of a life that crumbled so quietly and yet so brutally beneath my feet. I genuinely believed my marriage was built on trust and real love. We had spent 7 years together, 3 of them as husband and wife. Her name was Laura, a woman I met back in college. She was bold, hilarious, ambitious, the kind of person who could make any room feel like home with her energy. Like any relationship, ours had its fair share of challenges, typical fights about finances, careers, and occasionally family tensions. But I always thought we were steady, stable, strong. Looking back now, I can see the warning signs I chose to ignore. She'd make passing remarks about other husbands being more driven, or question why I wasn't earning as much as so-and-so. She'd mock my old car or complain that our vacations didn't look Instagram-worthy. I dismissed it all because love can make you rationalize anything. A few months ago, my father passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. I was his only child, so managing his estate was my responsibility. My dad hadn't been wealthy, but he'd worked tirelessly his entire life, and what he left behind, his home, a few investments and savings, amounted to a respectable inheritance. Enough that Laura and I could have built something bigger together. While I was deep in grief, Laura seemed like a rock, helping organize the funeral, cooking dinner, assisting with legal paperwork. She kept telling me Dad would have been proud of me, and foolishly I believed her. 2 weeks after the funeral, I was at home going through legal documents on my laptop. Laura was in the shower, and her phone lit up on the coffee table. I glanced over casually, not expecting anything, until a message preview popped up from a contact named Mike. It read, "So, how much longer?" My heart paused. Another message immediately followed. "You said once you secure the inheritance, you're done with him. Are we still good?" I froze. At first, I hoped it was a misunderstanding, some misguided joke, or maybe an old friend pushing boundaries. But something in my gut already knew the truth. I opened her phone. What I found made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a few messages. It was months of correspondence between her and Mike, her ex from years ago, someone she'd once dismissed as meaningless. But clearly that had been a lie. The messages began innocently but quickly escalated into flirtation, intimacy, and open conversations about me. Mocking our marriage, plotting a future together after she got her hands on my dad's inheritance. The message that haunts me most was simple. Once I secure his inheritance, I'm all yours. It wasn't just infidelity. It was premeditated betrayal. She was waiting for me to wrap up my father's affairs so she could take the money and run. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but something inside me said, no, not yet. I placed the phone back on the table and pretended nothing happened. When she came out of the bathroom, she was smiling, asking what I wanted for dinner. I played along, all while a storm was quietly breeding inside me. That night I didn't sleep. She lay next to me watching Netflix, laughing at something dumb, completely oblivious to the fact that I knew everything. I stared at the ceiling, heart racing, brain spinning. I had 2 choices, explode now or be strategic. I chose the latter, because if I confronted her immediately, she'd lie, manipulate, maybe even secure her claim to the inheritance before I could protect it. The next morning, while she was out running errands, I went straight to an attorney. My hands trembled as I explained the situation. The messages, the money, the manipulation. The attorney nodded like he'd seen 100 stories like mine. The good news? In our state, inheritances were considered separate property as long as they weren't mixed with marital assets. As long as I kept the funds separate, she had no legal claim to them. That was the first real relief I'd felt since my dad died. We opened a new account in my name alone. I redirected my paychecks there. When the inheritance finally hit, it went straight into that account too. I left just enough money in our joint account to keep things looking normal. Enough to pay bills, buy groceries, and maintain the facade. Meanwhile, I started documenting everything: screenshots, emails, bank statements, phone logs. I was building a wall of evidence just in case. Because I knew Laura. She wouldn't go quietly. I played my part flawlessly. I woke up beside her every morning, forced smiles at dinner, chatted about weekend plans, all while knowing she was plotting to strip me of everything my father had left me. The charade made me sick, but it gave me time. And that time was crucial. One night, I caught her whispering on the phone while I was in the garage. She didn't know I was just outside the door. Her words were crystal clear. Yeah, babe, he's almost done finalizing everything. I just have to keep pretending a little longer. I gripped the nearest object, a wrench, to keep myself from barging in. But I waited, because I knew what was coming. The money was safe. The papers were ready. I just needed the perfect moment. That moment came on her birthday. She woke up smiling, expecting pancakes and presents. Over breakfast, I handed her an envelope. Her expression shifted from joy to confusion to horror as she read the first line. Divorce. She tried to act clueless. What is this? She stammered. I remained calm. You know what this is. And for the record, you're not getting a cent of that inheritance. She went pale, tried to play dumb, tried to play angry. She even tried the guilt angle, reminding me how she helped with Dad's funeral. But I didn't budge. I showed her the screenshots, every word, every message. She tried to grab the phone from my hands. I pulled it back. Already backed up. Already sent to my lawyer. You're done. The last bit of her facade shattered. She went from sweet to desperate to furious within minutes. But none of it worked. That same afternoon, I moved out. I'd already arranged everything. A week later, she was officially served. Mike, the fantasy she'd built around him, gone. The moment he realized the money wasn't coming his way, he vanished. Blocked her. Disappeared. About a month later, she left me a voicemail. Her voice shaky. I made a mistake. Please, can we talk? I blocked her number without reply. Because no matter how much it hurt, and it did, I refused to let her take one more piece of me. I walked away with my dignity, my future, and my father's legacy intact. She got exactly what she deserved. As my hands trembled and my eyes struggled to focus, I picked up her phone with a heavy heart, already fearing the truth that lurked behind that bright screen. And there it was, a full thread of messages that made my stomach turn and my heart sink like a stone. It wasn't just flirty banter or a casual reconnection. No, this was a calculated, deliberate deception that had been going on for months. Laura had been reconnecting with her ex, Mike. The same guy she had once described as a distant mistake, a lesson learned, someone who meant nothing. And yet, here they were sharing intimate jokes, making plans, and worst of all, discussing me like I was nothing more than a temporary obstacle in their path towards some twisted reunion. The words, once I get his inheritance, I'm all yours, were like a knife to my chest, slicing through every memory, every hug, every whispered, I love you, she'd ever given me. In that moment, I didn't feel anger so much as I felt emptiness. It was like the world around me had paused. No sound, no movement. Just the deafening roar of betrayal echoing inside my skull. I couldn't move, couldn't cry, couldn't even think straight. I just sat there, reading those words again and again until they were burned into my mind like a brand. But instead of storming into the bathroom and confronting her on the spot, which every nerve in my body was screaming for me to do, I chose silence. I carefully placed the phone back on the table, right where she left it, and when she walked out, wrapped in a towel with that same smile she always gave me, I matched it. I asked what she wanted for dinner, acted like everything was fine, even laughed at her dumb joke about getting Thai again. But inside me, something had shifted. A switch had flipped. I knew then that my love for her was dying, and in its place was something colder. A quiet resolve, a steady rage. That night, I laid next to her in bed, staring at the ceiling while she watched Netflix on her phone, her laughter filling the room as if nothing was wrong. Couldn't sleep. My mind was on fire with 1,000 thoughts, all revolving around the same conclusion. I needed to get out, but I needed to do it right. If I blew up now, she'd gaslight me. Maybe claim I misunderstood the messages. Maybe play the victim. Worse, she might rush to grab a share of the inheritance before I could protect it. No, I needed to be precise, strategic, cold. So the next morning, as she went out on one of her errands, I headed straight to a divorce attorney with shaking hands and a heart that felt like it was cracking with every step I took. The lawyer listened quietly as I spilled everything. The inheritance, the texts, the lies. Then he gave me the first piece of good news I'd heard in weeks. The inheritance, as long as it's kept separate, is yours. She can't touch it. I felt a strange mix of relief and vindication. It wasn't about the money. It was about keeping something my father had left me away from someone who was only with me for personal gain. From that moment on, the plan was set in motion. A new bank account was opened. My paycheck was rerouted. I ensured that the inheritance would go into that private account, completely untouched by Laura. I left just enough in our joint account to avoid suspicion. Groceries, bills, gas, all seemed normal. Meanwhile, I collected screenshots, backed up messages, saved every bit of evidence. I was building a fortress around myself, preparing for the storm I knew was coming. Pretending was the hardest part. Each day felt like walking through fire. I had to look into her eyes, kiss her goodnight, talk about plans for the future. All while knowing she was secretly plotting to abandon me as soon as my father's money landed in our lives. She'd smile and say things like, "Once we get that money, maybe we should take a trip. Or, we could use it to fix up the house." But I knew we wasn't part of her plan. I watched her more closely. Noticed how often she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Noticed her late-night texts to Mike. Her sudden urgency about when the estate would be settled. She played her role well, but I could see the cracks in her mask now. And then came the night that nearly broke me. I had stepped into the garage to grab a toolbox, and through the slightly open door, I heard her voice. She was on the phone. I could tell immediately it was him. "Yeah, babe. He's almost done with the estate stuff. Just a little longer and I'm out. Then it's just us." Those words, that tone, so casual, so cold. I stood there, staring at the wall, my fists clenched around a wrench, my chest heaving like I'd just run a marathon. But I didn't burst in. I didn't give her the satisfaction of knowing I'd heard. Because I knew I was ready. The money had cleared. The papers were ready. And all I needed now was the perfect moment to deliver the final blow. I waited until her birthday. She woke up expecting gifts, pancakes, maybe even a surprise brunch reservation. Instead, I handed her an envelope across the breakfast table. She smiled as she tore it open, probably expecting some sweet letter or an expensive spa voucher. But as her eyes fell upon the first page, headlined "Petition for Divorce," I saw the color drain from her face like a curtain being pulled back on a lie. She blinked, fumbled, stammered, What is this?" I leaned back, calm as ice, and told her the truth, that it was exactly what it looked like. A divorce, effective immediately. Oh, and the inheritance? She wasn't getting a dime. Her reaction was a hurricane. First came the denial. "Wait, what are you talking about?" Then came the outrage. "On my birthday? This is cruel." Then, of course, the desperate backpedaling. "Let's talk, babe. Please." That text was out of context. "You're twisting it." But I'd had enough. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder full of screenshots, and slid it across the table. "You should have deleted your messages if you were going to pull a scam like this," I said. That line, "Once I get his inheritance, I'm all yours," ring a bell? She froze. Completely. The mask fell off her face, and for a moment, I saw the real Laura. Desperate, exposed, defeated. She tried one last time to play the victim. Said she'd helped with my dad's funeral. Said I'd never have that money without her. But I cut her off with one final sentence that shut her down completely. "You helped because you thought there was a payout at the end. Don't pretend it was ever about love." And just like that, I walked away. Movers came that afternoon. I took only what was mine. The house, jointly owned, was going up for sale. My lawyer made sure of that. She wouldn't get a free place to stay or a free ride on my father's back. And Mike? Well, he disappeared too. As soon as he found out there was no money coming his way, he blocked her number and vanished into thin air. 1 month later, she left me a voicemail. Her voice trembled. She said she'd made a mistake, that she was stupid, that she wanted to talk. I blocked her number without replying. Not because I was spiteful, but because I finally understood my worth. I carried scars from that relationship, yes. You don't spend 7 years with someone without picking up wounds that take time to heal. But in the end, I walked away with my dignity, my future, and my father's legacy fully intact. And as for Laura, she got exactly what she deserved. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button, because there's more where that came from.